It's obviously an energy battle as Europe struggles to combat an energy crisis. Russia continues to restrict natural gas shipments. EU citizens face soaring prices that might result in rolling blackouts, factory closures, and a severe recession. Let's find out what's going on with the energy crisis in Europe. Please welcome our guest today, Kun Thirachai Phuvanatnaranubala, former Finance Minister of Thailand.
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ Welcome back to Voice of the Nation. Can you update us with the situation?
Well, the situation in Europe is entering a phase that is prone with danger. In fact, I think it'll be very difficult for Europe to organize itself to pass this winter. And unfortunately, the problem that they are going to face this winter, which has not yet peaked, unfortunately, this kind of problem will repeat in at least one or two more winters. So the problem that Europe faces right now is that natural gas had been cut out of Russia. And the only saving feature that the European governments have done is that they had salted away. They had bought this liquid natural gas and put them into storage. And the percentage of storage at the moment is quite high. In the case of Germany, it's over 80% of capacity. But unfortunately, the amount that can be held in storage is only small compared to their normal usage. And normally, in a normal year, they rely on having a constant flow as well as using gas from the storage to tide them over the winter months. Unfortunately, at this time, even though they have a good amount salted away in the storage tank, well, unfortunately, the flow out of Russia has now been stopped. So the only flow that they can rely upon, and that has been the only flow that they had that they got in the previous 2 or 3 months, had been liquid natural gas imported from the U.S. Unfortunately, all 4 major terminals to liquefy and load the natural gas onto the vessels to sail from the U.S. to Europe are all on the edge of Gulf of Mexico. And we are going to see the events of a hurricane coming into the Gulf of Mexico in the coming few months. And not only that, the market for liquid natural gas worldwide, other than the US, all other major producers, most of them have already forward sold their production way ahead in contracts that last 10 or 15 years. So the US is the only major market that can still sell this liquid natural gas on a spot basis. And of course, right now, demand for spot natural gas had been weak because China had been shut down through their zero COVID policy. But if I speculate rightly, after the election of Xi Jinping in November, I suspect that China may decide to reverse the zero COVID policy bit by bit, and that will bring in demand for natural gas, and of course at that time Europe will have to compete with buyers in Asia for these spot purchases. So even though at this stage, many countries in Europe had put away adequate reserves, to tide them over the winter months, but the flow is still subject to a lot of risk, and should there be any disruption, it will certainly cause hardship. But more than anything, perhaps the most important aspect is the fact that the replacement gas that Europe had been relying on and will have to rely upon in the future cost at least twice, and can be as much as 3 times the cost of what they used to buy from Russia. So this is going to adversely affect the profitability, of firms, of manufacturers in Europe, and not only as a source of power, but many factories in Europe rely on gas as the raw material, particularly the plastic industries, petrochemical industries, and also the higher cost, is now being reflected into the price of electricity, and of course this is causing households to pull back in their consumption. So overall, Europe is going to suffer quite a bit in terms of tying over, the cold temperature in winter. The higher prices they are facing in terms of energy, but also the higher cost to the industry as a whole, and this will certainly cause a slowdown in the economy of Europe.
I see. So this wasn't in the plan for the EU countries. Before this, we see in the news companies banning Russia contact in persons or also corporate level, and now it's an effect over Europe. So you think that EU made a wrong step doing that, or it should continue like this so that it's not gonna show up like it's add up pressure on Russia? It's just like EU is suffering instead. So what the right move for now? They have to have the short term measure to help themselves, or they have to renegotiate with Russia.
I believe that the European Union decided to toe the line set by the United States because they thought that they had this super sanction measures which they thought would cripple the Russian economy within weeks, and those were the measures that had not yet been applied to any major countries before this, which was to cut the Russian banks out of the SWIFT system, and also to seize, to freeze half of the international reserves of Russia. For most other countries, if faced with such measures, it would lead to the currency collapsing, and pretty soon it would also mean banking system facing problems and bank runs, and this is what I think they thought they would be able to force the Russian to its knees very early on. Unfortunately, the economy of Russia is completely different, and it has strength in the basic commodities, especially energy, oil and gas. So now, they, having made the mistake, they had no choice but to continue, and they came up with more and more rounds of sanctions, each one more ridiculous, and also more ineffective, in trying to bring a stop to this war. Unfortunately, the miscalculation by the European has now resulted in their own people having to go through a lot of suffering. Unfortunately, it also means a lot of suffering for people all around the world. Not only in the price of energy, but we are going to see very soon in the price of food, and this is going to cause a lot of disruption all over the world.
It seems to me that when they did the sanction in the beginning of the war, nobody talked about energy like a factor that will result in this situation. So you think that because the Europe think they can rely on energy from somewhere else, or they think that you mentioned that it's super sanction may really force Russia to change their course to deal with the Ukraine. But it seems nobody talked about energy before in the beginning of the war. You see the same picture?
The reason they did not think about energy was because energy revenue is a very big item in Russians' budget, and they thought by being such a big element, Russia would not cut off its own arm, its own feet. Unfortunately, what they did not realize was that Russia didn't have to do much, except that by reducing supply a little bit, price went up. So even though Russia export less quantity, the amount of revenue in dollar term, they got the same amount. In fact, they even had higher level of revenue. The level of current account surplus went way up, and this is now feeding into the currency of ruble becoming too strong. So the miscalculation on the European part, I think they were lured into a false sense of confidence that Russia could not afford to cut off the gas supply and the oil supply. Unfortunately, Russia could.
Even though in Europe they got smartest economists, and it's surprising to me why nobody thought about this before. And it should be a good lesson for economists and also those studying the macroeconomic and also socio and political situation. You think so? Because we didn't expect about this before, and with this and the impacts, and you mentioned about the impact all over the world. Before we go to all over the world, in that case, can you tell us what Thailand should be prepared for this situation?
Well, Thailand is facing a problem on two fronts. The first one is the cost of energy. This will tend to go up. Very luckily, we have our own natural gas in the Gulf of Thailand, and the production of electricity, a large part comes from our own natural gas, and also fortunately we had been importing a lot from Laos. The supply of gas from Myanmar, I think, had been disrupted a little, but overall, it has not gone in and have a bad effect on our electricity production as yet. But the cost of oil, this is becoming a problem because the government of Thailand used the formula to set the domestic price of oil based on the price of the refinery in Singapore. Unfortunately, the investment in oil refineries around the world had had been slow in the past 10 years because of the ESG, environmental, social, and governance, criteria, and the fight against global warming had meant that banking system and capital market had been turning away from investment in fossil fuels. So at this stage, there are too few refineries in the world compared to the demand for oil. And that had enabled refineries that produce and export and at international level to be able to to push up their refinery margin substantially, and that has caused the price of domestic oil in Thailand to go up, giving extra profit to the oil refiners in Thailand, and this has been an unfair event because for the refiners in Thailand, their cost has not gone up. I'm not talking about the cost of oil. I'm talking about the cost of refinery. It has not gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is something that the people in the know have been trying to appeal to the government to change, but unfortunately, this government has ignored all these requests.
Mm-hmm.
The second problem that we are going to face is that when the price of natural gas is very expensive. Natural gas is used to produce ammonia, which is one of the three important elements in fertilizer. So we are going to face a shortage, of fertilizers of the three components, going forward, and this will affect the crop yields all over the world. But in Thailand, unfortunately, the price up to now, the price of rice has not gone up as much as wheat, because the war in Ukraine has not affected the area of cultivation of rice. But up to now, the farmers in Thailand had been burdened with the higher cost of fertilizer, and this is something that the government has to attend to, because this problem will not go away very soon.
That will finally, actually, we suffering the inflation now, but it's not just like in maybe in some European countries, but you see that by the end of the year, the food price and the consumer price will go up, and we can see it quite different from now in the next maybe by the end of in December, or we can hold on that situation until next year, so that we can be open more to get more tourists and also manage better the export. What do you think about this situation?
Well, the situation in Thailand, in terms of revenue from tourism, I think the momentum is still all right, because demand from Asian countries would still continue, even though tourists from Europe, from the West may go down.
China not showing.
China, I think if they lift COVID policy, we probably see a return. At least a portion of the Chinese tourists perhaps next year, but it'll be a gradual affair. The problem that Thailand will face will be in the slowdown of our export, because the problem that occurs in Europe will spill over, and at the same time we are seeing a slowdown in the economy of China because of the burst of the bubble in their real estate business. So on the whole, the overall economic condition of the whole world of the countries that are customers to Thai export will go down. Whether it's a lot or just a little, that remains to be seen. But this is the risk that is most prevalent to Thailand through our export.
Do you see any rising markets for us that can offset the loss of the export to Europe or to other countries? We see the government trying to raise more revenue from India and some countries, South Africa, things like that, or in the Middle East. So you think that the number of export to those countries will be really helpful for us?
Global trade is now going to change substantially, and the war in Ukraine is forcing the change. And the change is that the East, the congregation of the BRIC countries, as well as the other countries in Asia, will be trading more among ourselves. So it'll be useful for Thailand to start thinking about how we can facilitate the trade between Thailand and China, Thailand and India, Thailand and Indochina, as well as being the conduit, being the middleman between China and India. Unfortunately, the government of the current government had paid too little attention to the development of the north-south rail link between Thailand and China. So that unfortunately that if that had been developed at the same pace or with the same urgency as Vietnam, by this time I think the linkage between Thailand and China through rail would be a good way for us to build up the trade. But also I think we are going to have to look ahead. If we can establish a deep sea port on the Andaman side of the south of Thailand, that will be a good link between India and the south of Thailand, and even between East Africa and the south of Thailand. And if we can link it through the rail link, right up to China, we can become a good middleman using the advantage of our geographic location to be the middleman between India and China and China and East Africa quite easily. And and that's the trade between India and China will continue to grow in the next 100 years even.
We have been planning, the country has been seeing this as a benefit that we act like a middleman doing this, but it seems that you mentioned the infrastructure still too slow because the government not paying attention, or because of we have certain kind of conflicts or issues behind this project.
Well, I think we have to compare it, to the government trying to promote instead the high-speed railway east-west, linking Bangkok right down to Sattahip into Utapao, linking the three airports. Unfortunately, that is not going to promote intra-regional trade. That is good, for development of the eastern side of Thailand. But if you ask me, the reason why in the past few years, many factories from China relocated from China into Vietnam was because of the existence of the rail link between Vietnam and China. By having a north-south rail link, companies could relocate and then because when you relocate, you cannot go whole hog. Each main factory may have 100 or 200 suppliers, small factories that feed parts and raw materials into the main factory. When you relocate the main factory into Vietnam, the small suppliers cannot follow immediately. But if they have but with the rail link between Vietnam and China, they could rail in, they could send by rail the parts and the raw materials, allowing the factories that set up in Vietnam to function and to prosper, and and allow the development to grow to the stage whereby the suppliers, some of the 200 suppliers in the future can relocate to Vietnam to follow. Unfortunately, without the railing from Thailand into China, that is not an option open to us.
So see, we miss out this opportunity, and we see the Vietnam growing. Even the many American and Europe companies moving factory from China as well to Vietnam. So in this side, any benefit that we can get from the growth of Vietnam on that part?
Oh no, impossible. The only use that we can do that we can make right now is that if we can transport goods from Thailand overland into Vietnam, then we can use the rail link from Vietnam into China. I think that's the only way. Otherwise, right now we can also transport goods overland through our own rail. Or truck into Laos, and then go further into China. Unfortunately, it will have to change bogie, change train, which is not as convenient.
Oh, so you think that is more opportunity for Thailand to develop the other side to India to link to China instead, because we still can do that?
No, we have to do both. We have to develop north-south rail link between China, between Thailand and China, and also we have to develop east-west sea link between the south of Thailand and India, the south of Thailand and East Africa, and join this together. And by doing so, we'll be using the full advantage of our location, and nobody else has this ability, because the population of China and India over the next 50 years, 100 years will become richer and richer, and their demand for consumer goods will go up. And they have never been able to send goods to each other over the Himalaya for thousands of years. They have never been able to do that, and they will never be able to do that because it's just too high.
Right. So we should prepare this facility. I think this could be another interesting topic that we can discuss. Maybe we bring Chamber of Commerce and those that related to the trade between China and India for further discussion. And I hope that the energy crisis will be over soon, but it seems not really end up soon. And that's Kun Thirachai Phuvanatnaranubala, former Finance Minister of Thailand. Please follow us for more news and insight from our website, nationthailand.com. Thanks for watching Voice of the Nation. I'm Vitaya Saeng-Aroon. สวัสดีครับ